It was a sunny afternoon in Belridge, the kind of day where the warmth in the air made people stroll a little slower, chatting with neighbors on the way to the market or stopping for a coffee at the small cafe on Main Street. Belridge wasn't the kind of town where things changed quickly. It was quiet, peaceful, at least on the surface, and most people liked it that way. But beneath the friendly smiles and polished lawns, Belridge had its secrets. Officer Mark Davidson was one of those secrets. He wore his uniform like armor, his polished badge catching the sunlight as he patrolled Main Street. Mark wasn't just any officer. He was the officer. People respected him, or feared him, depending on who you asked. To the townsfolk who knew him best, Mark was more than just a cop. He was the self-appointed king of Belridge. He walked with a swagger, nodding at shopkeepers, chatting with passers-by, and keeping an eye on anyone he thought didn't belong. But Mark wasn't perfect. If you asked the right people, they'd tell you in hushed tones about the way he looked at some residents, the way his questions were sharper, his tone harder, when dealing with certain people. Nobody talked about it openly. This was Belridge, after all, and you didn't rock the vote. That afternoon, Mark stood near the corner of Main Street and Oak, his sunglasses perched on his nose, surveying the town like a hawk. He had his usual spots where he liked to stand, places where he could see everything and everyone. Mark loved being in control. At that moment, a sleek black car rolled past, its tires crunching softly on the gravel. It was new, shiny, and unfamiliar, an odd sight in a town where most people drove dusty pickup trucks or well-worn sedans. Mark's eyes narrowed behind his sunglasses. He didn't recognize the car, and in Belridge, everyone was supposed to be recognizable. Underscore 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 underscore. Michael Carter had just returned to Belridge after years in the city. He grew up here, but the town felt different now. Or maybe it was him who had changed. He parked his car in front of the courthouse, its old brick facade weathered but sturdy, and stepped out into the afternoon sun. Michael's suit was crisp, his shoes polished. He looked out of place in Belridge, where most men wore jeans and boots, but he didn't care. He wasn't here to fit in. He was here to make a difference. Michael had spent years in law school and even longer climbing the ranks as a lawyer in the city. He'd fought hard cases, cases that tested his patience and his strength, but nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to face in Belridge. As he walked into the courthouse, he noticed the glances from people on the street. Some were curious, some were indifferent, and a few were suspicious. He didn't let it bother him. Michael had grown used to being underestimated. It was something he'd faced his whole life. Inside, the courthouse smelled like old wood and paper, the kind of smell that reminded Michael of long afternoons studying in libraries. He nodded at the clerk behind the desk, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes, and made his way to the small office he'd been assigned. It wasn't much, just a desk, a chair, and a couple of filing cabinets. But it was enough. Michael didn't need much to do his job. He sat down and pulled out his laptop, ready to get to work. But as he opened his files, his mind wandered. He hadn't been back in Belridge long, but he'd already heard the whispers. People were wary of him, wondering why he'd come back. Some thought he'd failed in the city and was looking for a fresh start. Others assumed he was here for an easy life. Michael let them talk. He knew the truth. Michael wasn't here to escape or take it easy. He was here because Belridge needed change, and Michael was determined to be the one to bring it. Underscore 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 underscore. Outside, Mark Davidson watched the black car parked in front of the courthouse. He hadn't pulled it over yet, but he was keeping an eye on it. Something about it didn't sit right with him. Maybe it was the fact that it looked too expensive for Belridge, or maybe it was just the fact that Mark didn't know the owner. Mark prided himself on knowing everyone in town. He knew who lived in which house, who worked where, and who was visiting. When someone new came to town, Mark noticed. The next day, Mark saw the black car again, this time parked outside the cafe. He stepped inside, his boots clicking on the wooden floor, and scanned the room. It didn't take long to spot Michael. Michael was sitting at a small table near the window, sipping coffee and reading something on his tablet. He didn't look up as Mark approached. "You new around here?" Mark asked, his voice loud enough to draw the attention of a few other patrons. Michael looked up slowly, meeting Mark's gaze with calm, steady eyes. "Not exactly," he replied. "I grew up here." Mark raised an eyebrow. "Funny. I don't remember you." Michael gave a small smile. "It's a big town." Mark chuckled, though there was no humor in it. "Not that big. You got a name?" "Michael Carter," he said, extending a hand. Mark looked at it for a moment before shaking it, his grip firm. "Well, Michael Carter," Mark said, leaning slightly closer, "you might want to keep a low profile. People around here don't take kindly to strangers causing trouble." Michael didn't flinch. "I'm not here to cause trouble," he said evenly. "Just here to do my job." Mark studied him for a moment longer before stepping back. "We'll see about that," he said, tipping his hat and walking out. As the door closed behind him, Michael took another sip of his coffee. He could feel the eyes of the other patrons on him, but he didn't let it bother him. He had a feeling his path and Mark Davidson's would cross again soon. And next time, Michael would be ready. Mark Davidson was not the type of man to second-guess himself. In his mind, he knew who belonged in Belridge and who didn't. His rules weren't written anywhere, but they were clear enough for the people who lived there. Mark had his way of making people feel small, of letting them know they were being watched. For some, it was just a look, a hard, lingering stare that seemed to strip away their confidence. For others, it was his words, sharp and cutting, disguised under the pretense of concern or authority. Mark didn't think he was doing anything wrong. To him, this was just keeping the town in order. Underscore 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 underscore. It was just past 7 in the evening when Michael Carter decided to drive home. The sun was setting, painting the horizon in warm oranges and pinks. He liked taking the long way back, winding through the quiet streets of Belridge. The town had a charm that Michael could still appreciate, even with everything he'd been noticing lately. The streets were nearly empty, save for the occasional car or pedestrian. Michael was going the speed limit, his hand steady on the wheel. His sleek black sedan moved smoothly down the road, its polished surface reflecting the fading sunlight. But then, as he turned onto Maple Avenue, he saw the flashing red and blue lights in his rearview mirror. Michael's heart sank. He knew this wasn't just a routine stop. Pulling over to the side of the road, he rolled down his window and waited. Mark Davidson stepped out of his cruiser, his boots crunching against the gravel as he approached Michael's car. He moved with deliberate slowness, as if savoring the moment. His hand rested on his belt, near his holster, a silent message that Michael didn't miss. When Mark reached the driver's side window, he leaned down slightly, his face a picture of practiced authority. "License and registration," Mark said, his tone clipped. Michael handed over his documents without a word. He'd been through situations like this before and knew better than to argue. Mark looked over the papers, taking his time. "What brings you out here in such a fancy car?" Mark asked, his eyes narrowing as he glanced at Michael's vehicle. Michael met his gaze calmly. "I live here," he said, keeping his voice steady. Mark raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. "Oh, do you now? Don't see many folks driving cars like this around Belridge. Where'd you get it?" Michael sighed inwardly, but didn't let his frustration show. "I'm a lawyer," he replied simply. Mark's smirk deepened, but there was no humor in it. "A lawyer, huh? Well, Mr. Lawyer, did you know you rolled through that stop sign back there?" Michael frowned. He was certain he hadn't done anything wrong. "I'm pretty sure I came to a complete stop," he said, his tone polite but firm. Mark straightened up, his hand still resting on his belt. "Are you questioning me?" "No," Michael said quickly, "just stating what I remember." Mark's eyes lingered on Michael for a moment longer before he stepped back. He pulled out his ticket book and began writing. "Here you go," Mark said, handing Michael a ticket. "Failure to stop at a stop sign. You can pay it at the courthouse or contest it if you think you've got a case." Michael took the ticket without a word. He knew exactly what this was. It wasn't about a stop sign or any real traffic violation. This was about Mark's need to assert control, to remind Michael of his place. "Have a good night," Mark said, tipping his hat as he walked back to his cruiser. Michael watched as Mark drove off, the flashing lights fading into the distance. For a moment, he sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel tightly. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down. This wasn't the first time he'd been treated like this, and he doubted it would be the last. But something about this encounter felt different. Underscore 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 underscore. The next morning, Michael walked into the courthouse with the ticket in hand. He wasn't planning to pay it. Not yet, anyway. Instead, he wanted to document everything. He sat down at his desk and pulled out a notebook. He wrote down the details of the encounter. The time, the location, Mark's exact words, and his own observations. Michael knew the law, and he knew how to protect himself. As he wrote, he thought about the other stories he'd heard since returning to Belridge. Quiet complaints from people who didn't feel safe speaking out. Subtle hints about encounters with Mark that left them feeling small and powerless. Michael closed the notebook and leaned back in his chair. He didn't have all the pieces yet, but he was starting to see a pattern. Underscore 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 underscore. Meanwhile, Mark went about his day as usual, his interaction with Michael already forgotten. To him, it was just another stop, another way to keep the town in check. He didn't think twice about the ticket or the man he'd written it for. But Mark's colleagues weren't blind to his behavior. They noticed the way he handled certain situations, the way his tone shifted depending on who he was speaking to. Some disapproved, but they kept their thoughts to themselves. Mark had a way of making sure everyone stayed in line. Underscore 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 underscore. That evening, Michael decided to drive through the neighborhood again, this time with his dashcam recording. He wasn't looking for trouble, but he wasn't going to be caught off guard again. As he drove, he noticed Mark's cruiser parked at the corner of Pine Street. Mark was leaning against the hood, watching the road like a hawk. Michael felt his pulse quicken but forced himself to stay calm. He drove past without incident, but he could feel Mark's eyes on him. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Underscore 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 underscore. Michael knew he couldn't take on Mark alone. He started reaching out to others in town, people who might have had similar experiences. At first, most were hesitant to talk. Mark had a way of intimidating people, even when he wasn't around. But slowly, stories began to surface. A shopkeeper who'd been stopped for no reason on his way home. A teenager who'd been ticketed for jaywalking. A woman who'd been questioned outside her own house because Mark didn't recognize her. The more Michael heard, the clearer the pattern became. Underscore 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 underscore. Mark, meanwhile, started to notice Michael more often. The black sit-in was hard to miss, and Mark couldn't shake the feeling that Michael was watching him just as closely as he was watching Michael. Mark didn't like being challenged. It made him uneasy, and when Mark was uneasy, he doubled down. But Michael wasn't backing down either. He was playing the long game, gathering evidence and building his case. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to see it through. This was no longer just about a ticket or a stop sign. It was about something much bigger. Mark Davidson's authority in Belridge wasn't just about his badge or his uniform. It was the way he carried himself, the way he spoke, and the way people reacted when they saw him coming. Some nodded respectfully, others avoided eye contact altogether. Mark liked it that way. He liked knowing that when he walked into a room, people noticed. But there was a darker side to Mark's confidence. His sense of control often came at the expense of others. Over the years, he'd developed a reputation for being tough, but not necessarily fair. If you didn't look like you belonged, or if you dared to challenge him, Mark had a way of making life difficult. Belridge wasn't a big town, but it was divided in subtle ways. The older families, those who'd been there for generations, stuck together. The newer residents, especially those who didn't fit the small-town mold, often found themselves on the outside looking in. Mark's treatment of Michael wasn't unusual. It was just the latest chapter in a long history of similar incidents. But Michael wasn't like the others Mark had dealt with. He wasn't going to let this slide. Underscore 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 underscore. Michael's perspective. Michael sat at his desk, staring at the ticket Mark had given him. It wasn't the first time he'd been unfairly targeted by someone in authority, but it still stung. Growing up as one of the few black families in Belridge, Michael had learned early on how to navigate situations like this. His parents had always taught him to stay calm, to be respectful, and to document everything. "The truth is your best defense," his father used to say. Those words echoed in Michael's mind as he wrote down the details of the traffic stop. But this time, something felt different. Michael wasn't a teenager anymore. He wasn't powerless. He was a lawyer, a good one. And he knew the law inside and out. Mark might have thought he could intimidate him, but Michael had no intention of backing down. underscore 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 underscore. A pattern emerges. Over the next few days, Michael started paying closer attention to the stories he'd heard from other residents. He began reaching out, carefully and discreetly, to people who might have had similar experiences with Mark. One of the first people he spoke to was Rosa Martinez, a single mother who ran a small bakery on Main Street. She'd lived in Belridge for over a decade, but she still felt like an outsider. Rosa was hesitant at first. "I don't want any trouble," she said, glancing nervously at the front door of her shop. "You're not alone," Michael assured her. "I'm just trying to understand what's happening. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with." After a long pause, Rosa finally spoke. She told Michael about the time Mark had stopped her son, Alex, as he was walking home from school. Mark claimed Alex looked suspicious and questioned him for nearly 20 minutes. "He was just a kid," Rosa said, her voice shaking with anger. "He wasn't doing anything wrong." Michael listened carefully, taking notes. Rosa's story wasn't unique. The more people he talked to, the clearer the pattern became. Underscore 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 underscore. Mark's growing suspicion. Meanwhile, Mark was starting to notice Michael's presence more and more. It seemed like every time he turned around, there was that black sedan parked somewhere nearby. Michael wasn't doing anything wrong, but Mark couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Mark didn't like feeling out of control. He prided himself on knowing everything that happened in Belridge, and Michael was an unknown variable. It made him uneasy. One afternoon, as Mark sat in his cruiser near the town square, he spotted Michael walking out of the courthouse. He watched as Michael greeted a few people on the street, his easy smile and confident demeanor standing out against the more reserved nature of the townsfolk. Mark's jaw tightened. He didn't trust Michael. And the fact that Michael didn't seem intimidated by him only made it worse. Underscore 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 underscore. Another encounter. A few days later, Michael was driving home after meeting with a client when he saw the familiar flashing lights in his rearview mirror. He sighed, pulling over to the side of the road. Mark approached the car, his expression unreadable. "Evening, Mr. Carter," Mark said, leaning down to peer into the driver's side window. "In a bit of a hurry, are we?" Michael frowned. "I wasn't speeding." Mark tilted his head, as if considering Michael's words. "Maybe not, but your taillight seems a little dim. Thought I'd let you know." Michael glanced at his rearview mirror. He was sure his lights were fine. "Thank you, officer," Michael said evenly. "I'll get it checked." Mark lingered for a moment longer, his gaze sharp. "You do that," he said before stepping back. As Mark walked away, Michael's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He knew this wasn't about a taillight. It was about control, about reminding Michael who held the power in Belridge. Underscore 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 underscore. Planning the next step. Michael spent that evening reviewing his notes and organizing the stories he'd collected. Rosa's account wasn't the only one. He'd spoken to a young man named Jamal, who'd been stopped multiple times while riding his bike. He'd heard from an elderly couple who'd been pulled over for driving too slowly on their way to church. The more Michael learned, the more determined he became. This wasn't just about him. It was about everyone in Belridge who'd been made to feel like they didn't belong. But Michael knew he couldn't rush into this. If he wanted to challenge Mark, he needed to be meticulous. He needed proof. He started reviewing local ordinances and digging into Mark's record. It wasn't easy. Small towns like Belridge didn't always keep detailed documentation. But Michael was persistent. He also began documenting his own interactions with Mark, using his dashcam and keeping a detailed journal. He knew it was only a matter of time before Mark made another move. Underscore 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 underscore. Mark's misstep. Mark's unease about Michael continued to grow. He started keeping a closer eye on him, finding excuses to drive past his house or linger near the courthouse. One evening, Mark spotted Michael parked outside Rosa's bakery. He watched from a distance as Michael spoke to Rosa, their conversation animated but friendly. Mark didn't like it. He didn't like the idea of Michael talking to people, stirring things up. The next day, Mark stopped by the bakery under the pretense of ordering a coffee. Rosa greeted him politely, but her nervousness was obvious. "Everything okay here, Rosa?" Mark asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "Yes, Officer Davidson," Rosa replied quickly. "Everything's fine." Mark nodded, but his gaze lingered on her a moment too long. As he left, Rosa felt a knot of fear in her stomach. Michael had warned her this might happen, but she hadn't expected it to feel so personal. The weeks rolled by, and Michael kept his focus sharp. Every day, he felt more certain that what he was dealing with wasn't just a single incident of bias. It was a pattern. Mark Davidson had a way of targeting people who didn't fit into his vision of Belridge. Michael could see it clearly now, and he knew he wasn't the only one who had suffered because of it. Underscore 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 underscore. Connecting the dots, Michael started with his own experience. The first traffic stop might have been brushed off as a misunderstanding if it had been an isolated incident. But the second time, Mark pulled him over. Claiming his taillight was dim when it wasn't solidified Michael's suspicion. This wasn't a coincidence. As a lawyer, Michael had spent years learning to pay attention to details, patterns, timelines, and behavior. They all told a story if you looked closely enough. So that's exactly what he did. Michael began keeping a record of every interaction he saw or heard about involving Mark. He wrote down the time, place, and the people involved. It wasn't long before a troubling picture began to emerge. He started reaching out to others in the community. Some people were reluctant to talk, their fear of Mark evident in the way they hesitated or looked over their shoulders. But Michael had a way of putting people at ease. His calm demeanor and genuine concern made them feel safe enough to open up. One of the first people Michael spoke to was Jamal Williams, a college student who had returned to Belridge for summer break. Jamal was polite and respectful, but his frustration was clear as he recounted his encounters with Mark. "He stopped me 3 times this month," Jamal said, shaking his head. "Always says I look like I'm in the wrong place at the wrong time. I mean, what does that even mean?" Michael nodded, jotting down Jamal's words in his notebook. Did he give you any tickets? Jamal sighed. Not always. Sometimes he just questions me, like he's waiting for me to mess up. But yeah, I've gotten a couple of tickets for things that don't make sense. Michael thanked Jamal for sharing his story and promised to keep him updated. Underscore 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 underscore. A growing list of stories. As the days passed, Michael's notebook began to fill with similar accounts. There was Rosa Martinez, who told him about her teenage son being questioned outside their home for no reason. There was Linda Parker, a retired teacher who had been pulled over for driving too slowly on her way to the grocery store. Then there was Alex Green, a young father who had been stopped while walking his dog. He said my dog wasn't on a leash. Alex explained, his voice tense. But she was. He just wanted an excuse to stop me. Michael listened to each story with care, his resolve growing stronger with every new detail. He started noticing a pattern in the type of people Mark targeted: young, old, working class, minorities. Anyone who didn't fit the mold of what Mark thought Belridge should look like seemed to be fair game. Underscore 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 underscore. Quiet investigations. Michael didn't just rely on stories. He also began doing his own research. He requested public records, looking for patterns in the tickets Mark had issued over the past few years. It wasn't easy. Small towns like Belridge didn't always have the most organized systems, but Michael was patient. He spent hours combing through documents, connecting dots, and building his case. The numbers didn't lie. Mark issued an unusually high number of citations compared to other officers in the department. And when Michael analyzed the data further, he found that most of those citations were given to the same small group of people. Underscore 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 underscore. Mark's routine continues. While Michael worked quietly, Mark went about his days as usual. He patrolled the streets, handing out tickets and reminding everyone who was in charge. To him, Michael Carter was just another face in the crowd, someone who wouldn't dare push back against his authority. Mark wasn't completely oblivious, though. He noticed Michael talking to people around town, his black sedan parked outside houses or businesses. It made him uneasy, but he couldn't figure out what Michael was up to. One afternoon, Mark spotted Michael at the diner, chatting with an older man who owned a nearby farm. Mark watched them through the window, his eyes narrowing. He didn't like the way Michael seemed to be getting too comfortable in Belridge. Underscore 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 underscore. A warning from a friend. Not everyone in the town was blind to what was happening. Officer Sarah Johnson, one of Mark's colleagues, had been quietly watching from the sidelines. Sarah had joined the force to help people, but she'd grown increasingly uncomfortable with Mark's methods. One evening, she approached Michael outside the courthouse. "Mr. Carter," she said, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" Michael looked up, surprised. "Of course. What's on your mind? Sarah hesitated, choosing her words carefully. I've noticed you've been asking questions around town. About Mark. Michael studied her, sensing the tension in her voice. I have, he admitted. I'm trying to understand what's been going on. Sarah sighed. Just be careful. Mark doesn't like being questioned. He has a way of making things difficult for people who challenge him. Michael nodded. Thank you for the warning. But I can't ignore this. Too many people are being hurt. Sarah didn't respond right away. Finally, she said, if you need anything at all, let me know. I want to help, but I have to be careful too. Michael thanked her, appreciating her courage. He knew how risky it was for her to even speak to him about Mark. Underscore 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 underscore. The storm builds. As Michael gathered more evidence, he began to see the bigger picture. This wasn't just about a few bad decisions or personal biases. This was a pattern of abuse that had gone unchecked for far too long. He started organizing his findings, creating a timeline of events and a list of witnesses who were willing to speak out. It wasn't easy. Some people were still too afraid to come forward. But Michael was patient. Meanwhile, Mark continued to patrol the town, unaware of the storm brewing just outside his sight. To him, Michael was nothing more than a minor inconvenience, someone who would eventually give up and move on. But Mark didn't realize that Michael wasn't like the others. Michael wasn't going to back down. Underscore 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 underscore. The small revelations. Michael's investigations also revealed something unexpected. While most of the town seemed to turn a blind eye to Mark's behavior, there were a few key individuals who quietly supported Michael's efforts. One of them was Pastor John, the leader of the local church. Pastor John had seen the way Mark treated certain members of his congregation, and it didn't sit right with him. Justice is about more than just following the rules, Pastor John told Michael one afternoon. It's about treating people with dignity and respect. I've watched Mark for years, and I think it's time someone held him accountable. Michael nodded, grateful for the pastor's support. Every ally he gained made him feel a little less alone in his fight. Underscore 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 underscore. A slow boil. As the weeks turned into months, the tension in Belridge continued to build. Mark's actions became more deliberate, his need to assert control growing stronger. He started pulling Michael over more frequently, finding flimsy excuses to question him or write him up. But Michael didn't flinch. Each interaction only strengthened his resolve. He kept recording, documenting, and building his case. The townsfolk, too, began to sense that something was brewing. Whispers spread through the streets, the diner, and the church pews. People who had once stayed silent were starting to talk, their fear giving way to a quiet determination. Underscore 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 underscore. Michael's resolve. One evening, As Michael sat at his desk reviewing his notes, he thought about all the people who had shared their stories with him. Each one represented more than just a single incident. They represented a broken system that needed to change. Michael knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Mark was powerful, and the town had been complicit in his behavior for far too long. But Michael also knew he couldn't stop now. This was no longer just about him. It was about justice. For Jamal, for Rosa, for Alex, and for everyone else who had been made to feel powerless. The storm was coming, and Michael was ready to face it head-on. The morning dawned quietly over Belridge, with the soft light of the sun casting long shadows across the sleepy town. But for Mark Davidson, it was anything but ordinary. A crisp envelope sat on his desk, the bold lettering on the front catching his eye. He didn't recognize the sender, but the weight of the envelope felt foreboding. When he opened it, his stomach sank. The words were clear and unrelenting. Summons to appear in court. Mark read the letter twice, then a third time, his hands tightening around the paper. The charges were serious: racial profiling, harassment, and abuse of power. And the plaintiff, Michael Carter. Mark's initial reaction was disbelief. What does he think he's doing? He muttered under his breath. But as the reality sank in, his disbelief turned to anger. He wasn't used to being challenged, especially not like this. Underscore 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 underscore. A town on edge. Word spread quickly through Belridge. By midday, everyone was talking about the lawsuit. At the diner, in the shops, and even at the church, people whispered about what was happening. Did you hear? Michael Carter is suing Officer Davidson. No way. He's going to lose. Mark runs this town. Maybe it's about time someone stood up to him. The opinions were divided, but one thing was certain. The town was on edge. Underscore 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 underscore. The day of the trial. The courthouse was packed on the morning of the trial. People who hadn't stepped inside the building in years showed up, curious to see what would unfold. The air buzzed with anticipation, and the small courtroom felt even smaller with the number of people crammed inside. Michael arrived early, his suit neatly pressed, and his briefcase in hand. His calm demeanor stood in stark contrast to the tension in the room. He greeted a few familiar faces, exchanging nods with the witnesses he had gathered over the past months. When Mark walked in, the energy shifted. He wore his uniform, his badge polished to a shine, and his expression was hard and defiant. But there was a flicker of unease in his eyes, a hint that he knew this day wasn't going to go his way. Underscore 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 underscore. Opening statements. The judge, an older man with a no-nonsense demeanor, called the court to order. The opening statements began. Michael stood confidently as he addressed the court. Your Honor, this case is about more than just one person. It's about a pattern of behavior that has gone unchecked for far too long. Today, we will show how Officer Davidson used his position of power to target and harass members of this community based on nothing more than their race or social standing. We will present evidence, witness testimony, and records that paint a clear picture of systemic abuse. Mark's lawyer, A man who seemed just as cocky as his client countered with his own statement. "Your Honor, this case is nothing more than an attempt to smear the reputation of a respected officer. My client has dedicated his career to protecting this town, and we will prove that these accusations are baseless and fueled by personal vendettas." The stage was set. Underscore 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 underscore. The evidence unfolds. Michael began his presentation with methodical precision. He started with his own encounters with Mark, recounting each traffic stop in detail. He described how Mark had pulled him over for fabricated reasons, using his authority to intimidate and control. As Michael spoke, he played dash cam footage from his car, showing clear evidence that he hadn't rolled through a stop sign or had a dim tail light. The footage showed Mark's behavior, his condescending tone, his unnecessary questions, and his obvious attempts to provoke. The courtroom was silent as the videos played. Even Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Underscore 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 underscore. Witnesses take the stand. One by one, the witnesses came forward. First was Jamal Williams, the college student who had been stopped multiple times. Jamal's voice trembled slightly as he spoke, but his story was clear. He said, "I looked suspicious," Jamal said, his eyes fixed on the judge. "I was just riding my bike home. I wasn't doing anything wrong." Next was Rosa Martinez, who recounted the time Mark had interrogated her teenage son. "He made Alex feel like a criminal," Rosa said, her voice shaking with emotion. "My son was terrified. He didn't even want to leave the house after that." Underscore 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 underscore. The turning point. Michael saved the most damning evidence for last. He presented records of Mark's citations over the past 5 years, highlighting the disproportionate number issued to minorities and lower-income residents. The data was undeniable. Officer Davidson issued 65% of his citations to just 20% of the population, Michael explained, pointing to a chart displayed on a screen. These numbers are not random. They show a clear bias in his actions. The courtroom murmured as the evidence sank in. Underscore 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 underscore. Mark's smirk fades. Throughout the trial, Mark had maintained his usual smug demeanor, occasionally whispering to his lawyer or shaking his head dismissively. But as the evidence piled up, his confidence began to waver. When Michael played a recording of Mark's conversation with Alex Green, where Mark accused him of breaking leash laws despite clear evidence to the contrary, the smirk disappeared entirely. Underscore 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 underscore. Michael's final statement. As the trial neared its end, Michael stood to deliver his closing statement. He looked directly at the jury, his voice steady and strong. "This case is not just about me. It's about everyone in this town who has been silenced by fear. It's about a system that has allowed one man to abuse his power without consequence. Today, we have the opportunity to change that, to stand up for justice, for fairness, and for the values this town claims to represent. Let's make sure no one else has to go through what these witnesses have endured. Let's send a message that Belridge is better than this." The room was silent as Michael sat down. Underscore 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 underscore. The verdict. The jury deliberated for hours, the tension in the courthouse palpable. When they finally returned, the atmosphere was electric. The judge read the verdict aloud. Guilty. Mark's face turned pale as the weight of the decision settled over him. He had lost. Underscore 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 underscore. Justice served. As the courtroom emptied, Michael stood outside, shaking hands with the witnesses who had bravely come forward. For the first time in a long time, the people of Belridge felt hopeful. Mark, on the other hand, left the courthouse a defeated man. His badge and uniform, once symbols of power, now felt like heavy burdens. The courtroom buzzed with hushed voices long after the verdict was delivered. The words "guilty of misconduct and discrimination" echoed in the minds of everyone present. For years, Mark Davidson had been a symbol of unchecked authority in Belridge. Today, that symbol was shattered. Mark sat at the defendant's table, his face pale and his shoulders slumped. His usual confident demeanor was gone, replaced by a heavy silence. He had lost not just the case, but also the respect of a town he had ruled for so long. The judge's voice was firm as he handed down the consequences. Officer Mark Davidson is hereby removed from his position in the Belridge Police Department, effective immediately. Further actions, including revocation of his law enforcement certifications, will be determined by the State Review Board. Mark's badge and gun were confiscated on the spot. The room was silent as he stood and walked out of the courthouse, his head bowed. Underscore 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 underscore. Michael's mission continues. For Michael Carter, the verdict was just the beginning. Winning the case was a victory, but it wasn't the end of his fight. He knew that real change required more than holding one man accountable. It required systemic reform. The day after the trial, Michael met with members of the town council. The group was small but influential, consisting of the mayor, a few local business owners, and representatives from the community. "I'm not here to point fingers or dwell on the past," Michael began, addressing the room. "I'm here to help make sure this never happens again. Belridge can be better, and it starts with us taking responsibility for the kind of town we want to be." His words struck a chord. The council members listened intently as Michael outlined his ideas for improving the police department. Underscore 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 underscore. Reforming the police department. Michael proposed a series of changes, starting with mandatory bias training for all officers. He explained how similar programs had been successful in other towns, helping officers recognize and address their implicit biases. "We need to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the community," Michael said. "That trust starts with accountability and education." He also suggested creating a civilian oversight board made up of diverse members from the community to review complaints against officers and ensure transparency. At first, there was resistance. Some council members worried about the cost of these programs, while others questioned whether they were necessary. But Michael's persistence, backed by the evidence he had gathered during the trial, eventually won them over. Underscore 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 underscore. Community healing. As the changes began to take shape, Michael turned his attention to the people of Belridge. He knew that the trial had left the town divided, with some residents still supporting Mark and others feeling vindicated by the verdict. Michael organized a series of community meetings, inviting people to share their thoughts and concerns. The meetings were tense at first, with heated debates and emotional stories. But over time, they became a space for healing. One of the most memorable moments came when Rosa Martinez spoke at a meeting. "For years, I felt like my family didn't belong here," she said, her voice trembling. "But today, I see hope. I see a town that's willing to change. And for that, I'm grateful." Her words brought tears to many eyes and reminded everyone why the fight for justice mattered. Underscore 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 underscore. A new leader emerges. Michael's efforts didn't go unnoticed. The people of Belridge, once skeptical of the outsider with the fancy car and big city ideas, began to see him in a new light. "He's not just a lawyer," said Pastor John during a Sunday sermon. "He's a leader, someone who cares about this town and its people." Michael's actions inspired others to get involved. Younger residents, in particular, began volunteering for community projects, eager to be part of the positive changes happening in Belridge. Even Officer Sarah Johnson, who had quietly supported Michael during the trial, stepped forward to take a more active role in the reformed police department. Underscore 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 underscore. Mark's downfall. Meanwhile, Mark Davidson's fall from grace was swift and public. Without his badge, he was just another resident of Belridge, and the respect he had once commanded was gone. Mark struggled to adjust to his new reality. Many of the people who had once feared him now avoided him altogether. He became a shadow of his former self, spending most of his days at home or wandering aimlessly through town. Some residents felt pity for him, while others believed he got exactly what he deserved. underscore 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 underscore. A new chapter for Belridge. The changes in Belridge didn't happen overnight, but they were steady and meaningful. The new training programs for officers were implemented, and the Civilian Oversight Board became a model of fairness and accountability. The police department, once seen as an intimidating force, began to rebuild its relationship with the community. Officers participated in town events, volunteered at schools, and took the time to get to know the people they served. For the first time in years, Belridge felt like a town united. Underscore 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 underscore. Michael's reflective moment. One evening, Michael sat on the front porch of his home, watching the sun set over Belridge. The air was calm, the streets quiet. He thought about everything that had happened: the trial, the reforms, the people he had met along the way. It hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Michael smiled as he heard the laughter of children playing down the street. For the first time since returning to Belridge, he felt a sense of peace. Sometimes, he thought, change starts with one voice, and sometimes that voice becomes a chorus. Underscore 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 underscore. Epilogue. Years later, Belridge became known as a model for small-town reform. Other towns reached out to Michael for advice on how to address similar issues in their own communities. Michael continued his work as a lawyer, but he also became a mentor to young leaders who wanted to make a difference. His story became a source of inspiration, not just for Belridge, but for people across the state. As for Mark Davidson, his name faded from the headlines, but his story remained a cautionary tale, a reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked. Belridge had changed, and in its transformation, it became a symbol of hope and resilience. The room was silent except for the faint sound of Mark Davidson's breathing as he stood alone in his office. The space that once felt like a place of pride now seemed cold and empty. His desk, stripped of the clutter and trinkets that had once made it his, stood bare except for a single cardboard box. It was his final day at the Belridge Police Department, and his career as an officer was over. Mark sighed heavily, looking down at the items in the box. His badge, polished to a shine that no longer held any meaning, caught the light from the window. There was a photo of his academy graduation. A younger Mark, full of hope and determination, standing tall beside his proud parents. The memory felt distant, like it belonged to someone else entirely. He rubbed his temples, the weight of everything he had done pressing down on him. He wasn't just leaving his job. He was leaving behind the version of himself he thought he was. Underscore 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 underscore. The view from the window. Mark's gaze shifted to the window. Outside, the town he once ruled over stretched before him. Main Street was quiet, with only a few people walking by. Across the street, the Belridge Community Center was alive with activity. Children ran around the small playground, their laughter ringing out in the crisp afternoon air. In the middle of it all was Michael Carter, sitting on a bench with a group of kids gathered around him. He was speaking to them, his hands moving as he explained something. The children listened intently, their faces bright with curiosity and admiration. Mark couldn't hear the words, but he could see the energy. Michael radiated confidence and kindness, a stark contrast to the authority Mark had wielded for years. Underscore 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 underscore. A lesson in leadership. Mark felt a pang of something he couldn't quite name. Regret, envy, maybe even respect. He had spent so many years commanding respect through fear, through the weight of his badge and the power it gave him. But Michael had done something entirely different. Michael hadn't forced anyone to follow him. He had earned their trust, their admiration, by standing up for what was right. He had taken on battles that most people would have avoided and had done so not for personal gain, but to make Belridge a better place. Mark had to admit it. Michael had succeeded where he had failed. Underscore 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 underscore. Looking back, as he watched Michael laughing with the children, Mark's mind drifted to the past. He thought about the moments when he had crossed the line. Small decisions at first, things he justified to himself. A harsh word, a biased assumption, a ticket written out of spite. Each choice seemed insignificant in the moment, but together they had built the foundation of the person he had become. He thought about the people he had wronged. Rosa Martinez, who had feared for her son's safety. Jamal Williams, who had been stopped repeatedly for no reason. Linda Parker, who had been pulled over for driving too slowly. And of course, Michael Carter, who had refused to back down. Mark had convinced himself that he was doing what was necessary to maintain order. But now, he could see the damage he had caused. Underscore 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 underscore. A conversation that changed everything. Mark's thoughts shifted to the unexpected conversation he had with Michael a few weeks earlier. It had been a simple moment, a chance meeting outside the cafe, but it had stuck with him. Sometimes we don't see the harm we're causing until it's too late, Michael had said. His words had been calm, not accusatory, but they had hit Mark harder than any courtroom verdict. Mark had tried to defend himself. "I was just doing my job," he had said. Michael had looked at him, his gaze steady. A job done without fairness isn't justice, it's control. Those words echoed in Mark's mind now as he packed the last of his things. Underscore 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 underscore. The power of change. Mark watched as one of the children at the community center ran up to Michael, holding out a small piece of paper. Michael took it, smiled, and ruffled the child's hair. The simple act struck Mark deeply. For so long, he had clung to the power his badge gave him. But Michael had shown that true power didn't come from authority. It came from connection, from compassion, from the willingness to stand up for what was right even when it was hard. Mark wondered if he could ever earn that kind of respect. Underscore 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 underscore. A new chapter. As the afternoon sun began to dip lower in the sky, Mark closed the box and carried it to his car. The ride home was quiet, the familiar streets of Belridge passing by like scenes from a movie. He parked in his driveway and sat for a moment, staring at the house he had lived in for years. It felt different now, less like a home and more like a reminder of the life he had lost. But as he sat there, he made a decision. Mark knew he couldn't change the past, but he could change what came next. He couldn't undo the harm he had caused, but he could take responsibility for it. Underscore 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 underscore. Reaching out. The next morning, Mark wrote a letter to the Belridge Community Center. In it, he apologized for his actions and offered to volunteer his time. He didn't expect forgiveness, but he wanted to start somewhere. To his surprise, Michael reached out a few days later. They met for coffee, sitting at a small table near the window. The conversation was awkward at first, but eventually, Mark found the words he had been searching for. "I want to make things right," he said. Michael nodded. "It won't be easy, but the fact that you're willing to try means something." Underscore 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 underscore. An unexpected friendship. Over time, Mark and Michael developed an unlikely friendship. Michael encouraged Mark to share his story with others, not as an excuse, but as a lesson. "I think people need to hear it," Michael said. "Your journey can show them that it's never too late to change." Mark wasn't sure at first, but he agreed. He spoke at town hall meetings and community events, sharing his mistakes and what he had learned. The response was mixed at first, but as people saw his sincerity, they began to listen. Underscore 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 underscore. Belridge's transformation. The changes in Belridge continued to ripple outward. The new police training programs had a noticeable impact, fostering a sense of trust and collaboration between officers and residents. The community center expanded its programs, offering mentorship opportunities and educational workshops. Mark became one of the mentors, working with at-risk youth and helping them navigate challenges he had once ignored. Michael, meanwhile, continued his work as a lawyer and community advocate. His efforts inspired other towns to follow Belridge's example, creating a broader movement for justice and fairness. Underscore 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 underscore. A town reborn. Years later, Belridge had transformed into a place of unity and progress. The scars of its past weren't forgotten, but they served as reminders of how far the town had come. On the anniversary of the trial that had changed everything, the town held a celebration at the community center. People gathered to share stories, reflect on their journey, and look ahead to the future. Michael stood on the stage, addressing the crowd. "Change isn't easy," he said. "It takes courage, determination, and the willingness to face hard truths. But as we've seen, it's possible. Together, we've built something stronger than any one of us could have done alone." The crowd erupted in applause. Underscore 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 underscore. A quiet reflection. As the celebration wound down, Mark found himself standing by the window, watching the sunset. Michael joined him, holding a cup of coffee. "You've come a long way," Michael said. Mark smiled faintly. "We all have." They stood in silence for a moment, watching as the sky turned shades of orange and pink. "Sometimes," Mark said quietly, "change comes from the most unexpected places." Michael nodded. "And those who cling to power built on injustice, they're the first to watch it crumble," Mark finished, a note of acceptance in his voice. The two men stood together, their paths forever intertwined by the choices they had made and the lessons they had learned. Belridge was no longer just a town. It was a symbol of hope, growth, and the power of transformation. And for the first time in a long time, Mark felt at peace.